Please message S in the chat if my screen is visible to you. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so as you know, there are 12 different training modules that we are going to cover as a part of the training in this internship. So the first module is basic Python programming, second is advanced Python programming, and so on. So first module will start with this. There are the syllabus you have already seen in the PDF as well as in the video. So this is the first module that will start from today. It is basic Python programming, and we'll understand what is Python, how to write some programs in Python, how to install softwares which are required to execute the Python codes, or AI based systems, or maybe the machine learning applications. So before we begin, we'll start with the very basic thing: what is programming? Now, as you know, many times we heard about this term programming, software development, coding, programming, and so many times we come across this term like software developer is there, software testing is there. There are so and so vacancies are there for the Python developer, and so many things we heard about the programming. We also heard about hear about something like the something is programmed, that television is programmed, the computer is programmed, such kind of terms. So basically, if I have to define programming in a simple language, I'll define like programming is giving instructions to an electronic machine. So the electronic machine can be a mobile phone, it can be a computer, it can be a television, it can be even a router, it can be any smart system, it can be micro oven, it can be television, or even the simple calculator. So if we are giving some instructions to that particular machine, that process is nothing but programming. Okay, giving instructions to electronic machine is nothing but programming. Now instructions means what? We are giving some commands. We are asking to do something. So that is nothing but the instruction. As we give instructions to some uh, uh, our friends or somebody, in the similar way, giving instructions to electronic, this time we are talking about electronic machine, and now electronic machine can be computer, it can be mobile phone, it can be a calculator, or it can be anything. So if we are giving some instructions to that machine, that is nothing but programming. Now, why we are giving instructions to an electronic machine, or in the other words, I would like to ask you, why we are programming the computers, why we are developing softwares, why we are coming with some automation tools, some automated systems. Previously, if you can see, for door opening, there we can hire a person to open that door, but nowadays there is automatic door openers. So as soon as you appear in front of the door will open automatically. There could be some sensors that will sense the presence of human beings in front of the door, and it can open accordingly. Sometimes the door can open based on the facial recognition. It can recognize the face, and based on that, it can open the door. And nowadays, the door can open based on the temperature of that body temperature of that person, and whether that person has weared mask or not. Based on that, we can open the door as far as the COVID situation is concerned. So we can design a door, a smart door, which can recognize whether the particular person has the mask or not. And secondly, there could be some sensor attached to the door which will read or automatically measure the body temperature of that person. And if everything is normal, then the door will open automatically. So such kind of systems can be designed using this AI or ML based algorithms, and that's similar kind of things we will try to implement in upcoming sessions and in during this 1 year of internship. So for that we should give instructions to that door. Now that door is a non-living thing which is equipped with electronic system, which may have uh, some sensors, some electronic processors, microprocessors, or maybe some microcontrollers attached to that door. Now we'll instruct that door that you will have to open whenever you will detect a person with mask. And if you find that person is not having the mask, you will raise some alarm or something like that. So for that, we need to instruct. We should give some instructions to that door. So this is what expected and this is what required. That's why we are giving instructions to electronic machine so that some kind of automation can happen, and that will definitely release the human efforts and we can work without the humans. Okay. Now, why we are doing this? As you know, in a country like India, there is too much unemployment. Every day we heard about this thing ki, there is thousands of job cut in this industry, and again the engineers, doctors, and other people are not getting jobs in their field. So this is what the news come across. But still we want to replace the human beings by machines, by utilizing the skill of programming, by using the techniques of artificial intelligence, by using the techniques of machine learning. So why we are doing this? There are several reasons which are listed in this slide. So number one reason is speed. We can't beat machine in terms of speed. For example, the amount of or whatever work the machine can complete within few hours, for human beings it could take few days to complete that particular work. For example, if I ask you to solve some mathematics on the uh, pen and paper, then it will take some time, but the same thing can be done on the calculator within few seconds, and that too with the accuracy. So that is number two reason, accuracy. Machines accuracy cannot be challenged by any other human beings on this particular planet. So for example, let's take an example. You have to withdraw some amount from the bank, and previously you will have to withdraw from the cashier. So you'll go to the bank, you will ask cashier to deliver certain amount. So the cashier will count the notes and again it will hand over to you, and you will count that notes at least for twice, even if that cashier has counted that notes. But you will not trust that cashier because you know that cashier after all is a human being, so we can't trust the accuracy of that person. But whenever you will withdraw 10,000 rupees from the ATM machine, you need not find any requirement or necessity to count the notes. Immediately without counting, you will put that amount in your pocket. So that's how we trust the accuracy. So machines are always very much accurate. Cost. For example, if I say that cashier is there and we have hired that cashier in the bank, every month you will have to pay some salary to that cashier. But if you install ATM machine, then that's a one time investment. One time you have invested in that manufacturing of that machine, and after all there is no salary. So the cost effective. So if we come with some AI based system, smart system that will replace the human beings in future, definitely you will save some money. Honesty. The machine's accuracy cannot be challenged. Its honesty also cannot be challenged by any human beings. So basically, what the machines are very much honest. They are honest to their duties. They will never take rest. They will be 100. They will provide. They will be having 100% dedication towards their work. So if I say there is a fan, if I apply 230 volt 50 hertz AC supply to that fan, the fan will rotate and it has to rotate. And it will perform its activities with accuracy. Even the computers, ATM machines, mobile phones, they work with supreme honesty. But that's not the case with the human beings. Our whatever work we are doing varies with respect to time. Okay, so the honesty that can be the major problem. And in most of the countries, even in the country like India, the honesty is the problem. There is huge corruption in our country, so we can't guarantee the honesty of human beings. Repeatability, that's the number fifth reason why we are uh, doing this automation, why we are doing programming. Machine can repeat its actions over the period of time. You will see that whatever work done by that machine today will be same tomorrow. Even after some months, years, you will find the machine is repeating its actions again and again, and with same quality it is delivering the same amount of work. But that's not the case with human beings. Dedication varies with respect to time, and secondly, the work done also varies with respect to time. So these are several reasons why we do programming. Now we have understood why programming is necessary, why we are doing programming, why we are replacing human beings by this technology, by artificial intelligence and machine learning. So we'll understand what is AI and ML in upcoming few sessions. Right now we'll discuss about the programming, what is programming, and other stuff. Now one thing is clear. First thing, as the human beings are not accurate in their work, there is lack of honesty, there could be huge cost, repeatability is missing, speed is very low. In that case, we should go for programming, and we should develop some systems, smart systems, systems, automated softwares, so that they will completely release the human efforts and they will replace humans, so that we can come with some smart systems and smart softwares. Secondly, we have understood that some programming language will be required to instruct the machine. So if I have to instruct the some, let's say, some Hindi speaking person, I'll speak in Hindi. And if I have to instruct the Marathi speaking person, I'll instruct in Marathi. I'll speak in that language. Now my next question is, which language is suitable for giving instructions to the computers or electronic machines? You can answer in chat. Which language should I use to give instructions to the electronic machine or computers? Okay, for example, if I have to give instructions to Hindi speaking person who understands Hindi only, I'll speak in Hindi. Okay. So binary language, somebody has very rightly answered. Binary language, the language of zero zone, very correct. So what is zero and what is one? Have you what is zero and what is one? Machine level language, correct? True, false. Now, what is true and false? Boolean, okay, correct, correct. True, false is also off and on. Somebody has answered off and on. Yes, correct. The Sauni has answered the in a correct way. Zero hold or positive hold. So that means zero. Zero means exactly zero hold. If you have studied digital electronics or basic electronics in your course, you must have studied zeros and ones, which is the binary language, which sometimes we call as machine level language. It's the language of zeros and ones, where zero means zero volt and one means plus 5 volt. Okay, zero means zero volt and one means plus 5 volt. So as it is electronic machine, as it is electrical system, computer is electrical system or electronic machine, mobile phone is also an electronics device or electronic system. It will work on voltage and current only. It will understand only the language of voltage and current. And that voltage and current is nothing but the language of ones and zeros, zero and one. And sometimes it is called as machine level language, sometimes binary language, Boolean language, language on and off kind of language. This is the language. Now, the next question is, if I have to instruct that computer or that electronic machine, I should speak in the language of zeros and ones or in terms of voltage and current. But I am not familiar with that language. I am knowing Hindi, I can speak in Marathi or I can speak in English, but I can't speak in the language of zeros and ones. So, what can be the solution? For example, let's assume you have to speak with the Japanese person and you don't know Japanese. At the same time, that Japanese person don't know English, but still you will have to speak with that Japanese person. How will you speak with that person, or how the communication can be established? You can answer in chat again. You have to speak with the Japanese person. Okay, very correct. Use of a translator. That's very correct. So that's a correct answer. You will have to use a translator, some translator that will translate your language, that English, into the Japanese. And again, whatever that person is replying in Japanese, that will be translated back to English. This is how the communication can establish. Now we are talking about speaking with the machine, instructing the computer. So we should speak in the language that computer understand. Otherwise, we should use the translator. And you have used so many translators. Those who are familiar with the programming, they have used translator softwares. Those softwares sometimes called as compiler softwares, maybe Turbo C, Eclipse, or any other compiler that you have used previously. That compiler softwares are nothing but language translator. So you compile program, that means you translate that into the machine code so that the machine will understand. So we will translate our program, whatever we'll write in the Python or in C, into the machine code, and then the machine will understand that thing. Okay, so of course, after all, the Python is not compiled language; it is interpreted programming language that will understand later on. But some sort of translator you need that will translate that language, that high level language, into the machine code so that the machine will understand that thing. Okay, so the language translator, that's the answer. Now the next question is, if there is language translator, if we have the software which can be used to translate any language into any other language, and as per the Google is concerned, Google can translate in various languages. It can translate from Hindi to Marathi, Marathi to Hindi, again from English to Marathi, Marathi to English. So many languages are there. And as per the translator softwares are concerned, you have seen, or you may use translator softwares for C to machine code. You can translate your C language code to machine code. Even the Python can be translated to machine codes. Now the next question is, if we have to use the translator software and we can translate from any other language to the machine code, why can't we use English, Hindi, or Marathi, or any natural language which we speak for computer programming? Why can't we use English for computer programming? Why we have to learn Java, C, Python, such kind of languages? Again, that could be much difficult to understand. Actually, not difficult. These are very simple. Uh, if you have to learn English or any other, let's say you have to learn Japanese and you have to learn Python, so the Python is much easier to understand as compared to the Japanese language. So again, we have to learn why there is need to learn multiple languages like Python and other things. Why can't we use directly English language for computer programming? Okay, anybody can answer in the chat. Why can't we use? Okay, correct. Sauni has answered correctly. One sentence can have multiple meanings in English. So that requires complex analysis and context to understand what I'm speaking in terms of English. But in terms of machine should know, or it should, that whatever we are speaking, it should have a unique meaning. For example, you can consider this slide. On this slide, there is a statement: I saw a boy on hill with a telescope. Okay, so I saw a boy on hill with telescope. That's the English language statement. What can be the meaning of this statement? So number one meaning could be, I am having a telescope and the boy is on hill and I'm watching through that telescope. Number two could be, the boy is having the telescope and I am watching him. So there could be multiple meanings for each and every statement that we speak in English language. For machine, this is not suitable. For machine, there should be a statement or instruction which will have only one meaning. For example, door open means door open. Face recognize, yes or no, that should be yes or no. There should not be any kind of confusion. So that's how every instruction you will write in Python, every instruction you will write in C language or any other programming language must have unique meaning, one single meaning. There should not be two meanings or multiple meanings for that. Secondly, in order to understand English language, we need a complex analysis and context in which the speaker is speaking so that we can understand or we can extract the meaning from that statement. So that's the big problem in English language or any other language. That's the same problem in Marathi also, or even in the Hindi. So we can't go with such languages. We should use some programming language, some mathematical language. That's how there is need of some mathematical languages to for computer programming. So the Python, C language, Java, even MATLAB, VHDL, or any other programming language you have studied, they are mathematical programming languages. Now there is something common in each and every language you study. You study C language, Java, Python, or any other language. Some things are very much common in all those languages. And if you can program in one single language, you need not to learn other languages. You can easily understand the other languages, and you can start programming in other languages also by understanding their syntax and their grammar. Only the grammar will change, rest of the stuff will remain same in all the languages. For example, if you study C language, if you know how to use decision control, how to use looping structures, how to use functions, same concept, exactly same concepts are there in Python. Only thing is that grammar is different. For example, if you can speak in Marathi, if you understand the grammar of English and the vocabulary of English, you can easily speak in English language, or even you can easily speak in Hindi also if you understand the grammar and other stuff of Hindi language. If you can speak in Marathi, that means you have a skill of speaking in that language. So you can use same skill for speaking to give lecture or to deliver some talk in other language. So that's the same thing, exactly the same funda is there in case of this programming languages as well. You can understand, you can study one language in detail, and you can program in other languages very easily. You need not to worry about the, or you not to learn that languages from the scratch, because these languages are mathematical languages. Once you understand the syntax and grammar of any language, you can easily write program and software in that language. If you have skill of writing the software, developing the algorithms, you can develop similar algorithms in any other programming language. Now there are so many programming languages. There is tens of programming languages. You may see C language, basic, .NET, Java, MATLAB. So many programming languages are there. Why Python only? Why to learn Python only? Why can't we learn C or any other language for machine learning? So there are several reasons again. The number one is the Python has healthy, active, and supportive community. So the Python is open source programming language, and there is a huge community using this programming language. Many people across the world using Python programming language, and there are huge supportive community for this programming language. There are so many developers, they are doing the software development in Python, so they are always ready to help you whenever you will find some problems in the programming. Secondly, the Python is used for artificial intelligence and machine learning. The reason is very obvious. The Python is having the strong mathematical background, and the Python is having strong mathematical libraries as well, mathematical functionality. The Python is very rich in that in terms of mathematical functions. And artificial intelligence and machine learning is all about mathematics, is all about the complex mathematics, some equations that we'll have to solve, some equations we have to fit. So it's mathematics in terms of the machine learning and artificial intelligence. So Python could be the most suitable language. Actually, there was a two options for the developers. Either they will develop entirely new programming language for AI ML, or they can use the previously available programming language which is rich in mathematics. So Python is rich in mathematics, and as you know, the Java came after the Python. The Python is released before the Java, but still Java was there in the market for so many years. But nowadays, Python is the number one programming language for AI and ML. Python has amazing libraries, so many libraries you will find, and in later sessions we'll understand how to download libraries from the pypy.org website, and how we can use the ready-made codes in our project. So that we'll understand in some different sessions. But the Python is having amazing libraries, and recently the in 2019 or in 2020, the image of black hole is captured by using the Python libraries help to visualize the black hole. Now that was the historic day in human race to capture or to see the black hole, because many scientists believe that black hole doesn't exist. So that's a different question and the point of debate. But the science has succeeded to capture the black hole image using Python libraries, and the Python has supported that, and the Python has helped to capture the black hole image. So that was the historic day. The Python is reliable and efficient. It's very easy to learn. You will find that if you are having the previous experience of programming, you will find that the Python is easiest language to learn. Okay, so it's very easy, straightforward, and very simple to learn. Very few lines of code is required to execute some application. For example, if you have to implement the calculator in C language, and the same thing if you have to do in Python, you will find that the Python will take lesser number of lines of code to do the same task. So that's the advantage of using Python, and that's how we should learn, and we must learn Python. And if you are learning Python, sometimes there is a misconception in students that they should learn C language first and then they should learn Python. They should consider C language as the first language, and after that they should learn any other language. So this is completely wrong. You can consider Python as the first language. Even if you do not have any previous knowledge of programming, you can consider Python as the first programming language, and you can start from that. You need not to learn C language before the Python. And also, after learning Python, it's not required to learn C language or any other programming language, unless and until you have assigned some work in different programming language in by the company. For example, you have uh, recruited in some company, and that company is demanding that you should develop something in C++. In that case, you should understand the syntax and grammar of that language. Otherwise, only Python is sufficient. If you plan your career in artificial intelligence or machine learning domain, or even in data science, only Python is sufficient. No need to understand any other programming language. Now, this is just a list of some companies who is using the Python, just to motivate you. The YouTube is extensively using Python. NASA is using Python. Netflix, Raspberry Pi is also using the Python. Google is also using Python. Dropbox is also using Python. Even the Instagram is also using Python. So these are some popular companies, and without these, without YouTube, without Google, we can't imagine our life. But these companies are using the Python programming language. Now, as far as the Raspberry Pi is concerned, is the credit card size computer, small computer, and the recommended language for that computer is the Python. So Python is the number one choice for Raspberry Pi, and other these companies are using Python. So it's a great opportunity to learn Python, and there are lots of job openings available for Python. As per the AI and ML concern, it's a upcoming field, and in future, as we have seen that in sci-fi movies, that the this is the age of robotics, age of machines, and the machines will replace human beings and they will dominate over the human beings. So the machines will be programmed by some artificial intelligence or the machine learning algorithms, and such robots will run the world in future. And whatever you have seen in the sci-fi movies like Transformer or any other movies, that could be the reality for tomorrow. So that is not just a sci-fi movie, or just it's not just imagination. It could be reality for tomorrow. Tomorrow, everything, whatever we are imagining today, that could be the reality for tomorrow. So whatever you have seen in the sci-fi movies will be the reality in future, and for that the artificial intelligence and machine learning will be responsible. Sometimes the deep learning will be responsible for that. Okay, so with this, I'll conclude with the introduction to this Python, and now we'll discuss how we can download the Python software. Now, many of you may be having the Python already installed in your computer. Some student may be already doing Python programming, and some of you may be doing this for the first time. You may be installing the Python software for the very first time. Okay, so for those, how to download Python. So you can visit this website www.python.org/downloads, and from that you can download the latest version of Python. But I'll recommend a Python 3.8.0 version, as you can also use the latest version of Python, but sometimes the latest version it's not stable. Some libraries will not be supported on the latest version of Python, so I'll recommend to download Python 3.8.0 version, and I'll directly provide the link to download this version if you are using Windows. So I have on this page python.org/download, and I'm particularly downloading this version of Python. Currently Python 3.9 is the latest version, but I recommend this version because this is the stable version of Python 3.8.0. So you can scroll down and there is an option here for Windows 64-bit version. If you are using Windows 10 or any Windows having 64-bit version, so you can download this executable installer. So for now I'll just copy this link address, and I'll just provide that thing in the chat section so that you can download Python from this link. Second software that we require is the Visual Studio Code or VS Code. Okay, this is again an important software. I recommend this software. I will personally prefer this software because this is the software where you can program in Python as well as you can program in other programming languages as well, like Java, or even you can use HTML code, or even you can write CSS codes here. So the last module of our training is the web application development for our AI application. So whatever machine learning product you will develop, for that you will create a small website so that it can be hosted online and anybody can take advantage of your product or anybody can use. So we'll create a web application for your Python based product, whatever you will do, machine learning app, maybe face recognition. So it will be a web based system, so that from your mobile phone also, by using your mobile phone's camera also, you can recognize the faces of the person. So, and it can be a web application, so that it will be hosted on the cloud only or any server only, and it will be accessible across the globe. So such kind of system we are going to develop at the end. So that will be module number 12. So for that we will require some HTML code, some CSS coding, sometimes some JavaScript as an additional part for to develop the front look. It's not nothing to do with the machine learning or AI, as far as the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is concerned. Nothing to do with the AI and machine learning. It's all about the front end of the website, just like this looks, graphics design, or not exactly graphic design, but what your looks and what your appearance of your website can be designed in that HTML and CSS. Okay, so for that we this Visual Studio Code is very very powerful IDE. So I'll recommend to download this also. So I'll also provide the download link for this. Okay, so these two softwares you will download. The number one is Python 3.8.0, and number two is Visual Studio Code or VS Code. Now the VS Code is important software for uh, Python programming. Otherwise, we can directly use Python ideally also. So once you download this Python from this Python/downloads, you can directly start writing the program in IDLE. So IDLE is the basic Python tool or the IDE which will help you to write the Python codes. Okay, yeah, I'll also provide the links in WhatsApp group also. Somebody's asking, Vedang is asking whether I'm going to provide the links in WhatsApp group. Yes, I'll provide. So the this ID, Python's ID, basic IDLE, as soon as you will download that, whatever link, this link I have provided, that's python.org/downloads. From this, if you download the Python, the automatically one ID, default ID, will be installed in your computer. That is called as IDLE. And in that you can actually start writing the Python codes. You can even write machine learning codes or anything you can do in that. But that ID is not rich in terms of features. It's very poor. We can say the user interface is there. It's not the modern user interface that this IDLE is providing. So I'll not recommend that. But as a beginner, you can definitely you can start with that. So for that, I am recommending Visual Studio Code or VS Code. Of course, many students may be previously using the Spider or even the Anaconda they may have installed, or sometimes they may be using the PyCharm, sometimes Google Colab also. So that's totally fine. No worries with that. But this is VS Code is much powerful, and it's even the PyCharm and VS Code. I'll consider both are same in terms of the features. The PyCharm, Spider, VS Code. These IDs are equal in terms of features. So you can consider any ID ideally or ID for the programming, but I'll recommend Visual Studio Code, the latest version of Visual Studio Code. You can download from that link which I have provided in the chat section. Also, I'll provide in the WhatsApp group. So once you download everything, the next job is to install. Okay, you will have to install the setup. Now I'll tell you how to do that installation. Okay, I'll step by step I'll guide you how to install the Python, how to download. So by hitting that link which I have provided in the chat section, you will be able to download .exe file, and that .exe file will look like this. Okay, now this is Python 3.9.0, but you will have to download Python 3.8.0, for which I have provided the link. I am not recommending Python 3.9 because it's not the stable version. Some libraries may not be supported on this version. So Python 3.8.0 is the stable version, and on which Python libraries will be supported. Many Python libraries like OpenCV, TensorFlow, Keras, which we are going to use in the even the scikit-learn, which we are going to use for the machine learning, supervised learning, unsupervised learning, for natural language processing. That will be, or even for the web application development, there are some libraries which are supported, and they are stable on Python 3.8.0 version. So I am recommending that version. So once you have this kind of setup, you will find this kind of setup in your downloads. Simply you will double click on it. Okay, and here is the important step. Many times we miss this step, and that will create some problem. So here the step is, you have to click on this add Python 3.9 to path. You must click on this option, otherwise you will have to manually update the Windows path for your Python. Okay, this is helpful in operating Python right from your command prompt. You can operate your Python from your Windows command prompt. For that, you should add Python to Windows path so that Python will be accessible from your Windows path or Windows command prompt. Right? By opening CMD, you can access the Python. Secondly, you will be able to install some libraries, some packages in your project from the command prompt if we add Python 3.9 to path. If you uncheck this box, still you can program in Python, but you will not be able to access your Python from your Windows command prompt. Okay, and after this you will click on install now. It will install Python in your computer. Okay, that's great. So firstly you will add Python 3.8, no, this time 3.9, but you will add 3.8 to path, and then you will click on install now button. Now that will install the Python in your computer. Okay, and similarly you will install there will be a VS code setup. There will be .exe file. There is no special instructions to that. You just run that exe file. click on I agree and next, next, next. That will install VS Code. So installation of VS Code is very straightforward. No worries with that. But installation Python, you will have to click on the add Python to path button so that the Python will be added to the Windows path. And now once it is added to Windows path, you will be able to access your Python from the Windows command prompt. Now how? That I'll tell you. So simply you can search for Windows CMD. Once you search CMD, you can open this CMD over here, and simply if you type Python here and hit enter, you will find that the Python 3.8.0 is there on your computer. Now it's installed. If you are getting this kind of print output, that means Python is properly installed in your computer and it is on Windows path. Now you are good to go from here. You can start writing Python codes from here and it's perfectly fine. But if you type here Python and you will get some error. So if you get some error like Python is not recognized as internal or external command, that means you have not added Python to path during the installation. There could be two possibilities for that error. If you get error like Python is not added, the Python is not recognized as internal or external command, there are two possibilities. Possibility number one, either the Python is not installed in your computer. You have not installed any version of Python in your computer. That's the possibility number one. Possibility number two, Python is installed in your computer. Python is installed in your computer, but it is not on the path. So that means you have not checked window add Python to path, that button that I have just shown to you. If you do not click that, you may get that error also. So now if you hit like this, the Python shell, this is the Python interpreter has started here, and here also you can write Python codes. For example, I can write 5 plus 2 and I'll get the answer 7. 6 minus 2 I'll get. Even I can operate complex mathematics. 6 multiplied by 2 plus 2 star 7 plus 8 minus 23.5, something like this also okay. You will get the answer after calculation of this. Now this is like a calculator, you are playing with this thing. So this is the Python where we can actually execute such codes. But again you will see this interface is not good. It's a very bad interface to program over here. Secondly, I'll not be able to save my code and I'll not be able to edit my code as it is command prompt. So this is just to show you how the Python could be added to path. Of course, we are not going to use this tool for Python programming. Now you can write exit so that it will exit from this Python interpreter. So it will exit this Python interpreter, but after typing Python, it will start Python interpreter and you can start writing some code in that. So this is the version of Python which is developed on October 14, 2019. So this version was released on this date. So it is old version of Python which is released around 2 years back. So it is stable version. But if you install 3.9 version, latest version of Python, you'll find it is released only few months ago, maybe 2 months ago or 1 month ago. So maybe it sometimes will face the stability issues and some libraries will not be supported on that particular version. But as far as this is concerned, perfectly fine. 3.8.0, it's a stable version. Now this is one thing, how you can open the Python interpreter and how you can start writing some program. And as I said, once you install the Python in your computer, automatically one IDE will be installed in your computer, that is called as IDLE, and which is default IDE for Python programming. Now this IDLE tool you can find from the Windows search menu. So from Windows, if you type IDLE, you'll find this thing. There should be this thing, Python 3.8 64-bit. Now if you click on that, so it will open the IDLE here, and the same thing is displayed. The same thing was there in CMD, exactly same message was printed in the CMD, and the same thing is here. Only thing is that now this has some little bit improved interface, some beautiful interface, but still not, we can't say that it is having the rich interface or the modern interface, or it doesn't look like modern IDE for programming. But it do give some options to you, like you can configure this one. So you can control the font, you can control the color of your font, you can definitely choose some colors for highlight colors and different colors. Some keys you can define, general options, some extensions you can add. So basic interface plus some features, some font options, font size options, and few important options will be provided with this interface, but not rich interface. I can't say this is the modern day IDE, but still it's good as compared to the Windows command prompt. Now here also you can start writing simple codes. 2 plus 3, even the 5 multiply by these things, and the 1 5 divide by 4, or something like this. You will get the answers like here. Now, even you can define some variables. A equal to 10. Now those who are very much new to programming, don't know about variables and these things, don't worry, we'll cover that thing in detail. For this, just understand A equal to 10, that means the value of A is 10. A is a name given to some variable. The A is called as variable basically, and its value is 10. The value of A is 10, value of B is 15. And now you can write C equals to A plus B, and then you can simply type C here, so that we'll get the answer 25. Okay, like this. So if A equal to 10, B equal to 15, then C equal to A plus B, and then C, that will be 25. So some thing we can do, or similar to this, we can create some basic calculator here. So basically this is like a calculator. Just like your Windows calculator, you do some calculations. This shell window is similar to that. This is like a calculator. You just put some values and you get some answer, just like a calculator, nothing else. So this is called as Python shell window. The problem with this window is similar to that of the command prompt. The problems with the command prompt and the problems with this are similar. First is, we can't save this program. Secondly, I can't edit this program. For example, if I have to change this plus sign to minus, then it's not possible. It's the not because this is the command prompt. This is the shell window. Once you execute, it will execute. You can't change or modify this thing. But that's not the limitation of this Python shell window. You have this Python file menu, and there you can create a new file. And here actually you can write some code. A equals to 5, then B equals to 10, and then you can write C equals to A plus B, and then you can print this one. Okay, so for now I'm not explaining what is this print and all those things. Just understand it's a simple code, it's straightforward, readable. But we'll understand what is print and all these things, variables and operators and all those things in detail. Now you can run this from here, run module, or you can click on F5. You can save this one. To save, you can save anywhere. So just I save tutorial.py. I'll replace that one. And now it has run, and the answer is 15. Okay, after running that, you will get the answer as 15 on the Windows uh, shell window. Okay, on the shell window you will find that 15 is the printed answer. So this is how we can run that code and we can get this kind of answer here. So basically what we are doing now, this code, whatever we have written in the tutorial.py, can be modified. So instead of plus, I can do this one, and then again I can run this one. So in this case I'm getting -5 as the answer. So again, the interface is improved. I have this kind of interface where I can edit the code. This is Python editor. I can write simple codes. I'll be able to edit this code. I can store this code. I can share this code. So if you can store this code, you can share this code through email or any other communication media, and you can modify this code. So you can well maintain your code in a particular folder, and you can organize your Python scripts properly. But still, this ID do not look like a modern ID, as it doesn't have any numbering, or it's not the good ID for the programming. So I'll not recommend this ID, but this is as a bonus ID. Once you install the Python, automatically will get this ID. So not to worry. This is automatically we are getting this ID. We are not installing this ID, but once we install Python, we'll get this ideally automatically. The ID which I'll recommend to you is the VS Code or Visual Studio Code ideally, and that you can open, or once you install you will find this kind of shortcut on the desktop, Visual Studio Code, or even you can search from the Windows menu also. But this is the ID that I'll recommend for the Python programming. This is Microsoft VS Code, lightweight software for Python programming, and even you can program in any other programming language as well. By double clicking, it will open. So within few seconds, the ID will be launched. This is how the ID will be launched. And as soon as you have installed this ideally, one thing that you will do is you will click on this extension button. Okay, on the left hand side you find there is extension button. So you will click on this button, extension button, and you will search here for Python. So firstly it will show you what are the extensions that you have installed. Now I have already installed these two extensions, Python and Jupyter. But you can search here. In your case, if you are doing this for the first time, there will not be any extension previously installed in your VS Code. So what you will do, you will search here for Python. Once you search for the Python, the very first extension which is having this star mark, okay, very first extension, not even this Python for VS Code. So you will find a install button here instead of the settings button. Now I'm getting settings button because I have already installed that. And using the settings button, I can actually disable or uninstall that one. But in your case, you will get this kind of button, install button over here. So you will click on that install button, and after few minutes, the Python extension along with the Jupyter extension will be installed in your VS Code. That's the first thing you should do whenever you will install the Visual Studio software in your computer. You will click on the install button. First of all, you'll click on the extension button here in the left side. This is the extension button. You will click on that button, and after that you will search your Python, and the very first extension Python, you will click on that and it will automatically install the Python extension. So once you click on, you can see here there are several options here. So you can, this is Python extension and a very powerful extension. You can even disable and install after installation, but you will have to do this in order to start Python programming in VS Code. Without this extension, you will not be able to program in Python using this IDE. But this is not the case with PyCharm and Spider. You can directly start writing the code. But this is the one additional step you will have to do for VS Code. So if you are using VS Code, you will have to install Python extension. Let it be. So now you can do one thing. Now you can open from file menu. You can open a folder. Okay. Now the next step is from file menu. You can open a folder, and you can even create a new folder also. You can give some name, let's say AI ML underscore internship, something like this. I'll also say you that you should maintain your codes in a proper folder. Okay, so I'll create a new folder. So automatically on the desktop you'll find a new folder. Empty folder is now created, AIML internship. Now in this folder I'm going to put my codes. You can make subfolders also, whatever you want you can put there. And from here there is a button to create a new file, or you can even click on this button to click new folder. But I'll suggest you can create a date wise folders, or even the topic wise folders you can prepare. Like first one is, let's say we are dealing with variables, and you can create a folder called variables and day one, and in that case you can put your Python codes which are related to that. If you are doing decision control if statement, then you create folders by that name, so that in future you will be able to refer your codes properly. Otherwise what will happen if you save codes by xyz.py something.py, in that case you will not be able to access your code properly in future. So from the day one itself I'll suggest you organize your codes properly, maintain a standard structure of your directory, so that you can maintain your codes properly. Whatever assignments I'll give to you, just put everything in that folders, so that in future you'll be able to access your codes very easily and everything will be readable. Now I'll create a new file in this folder. So I just create here let's say tutorial .py. Okay, you will have to give extension .py here, indicating that this is Python script. And once you click on py, let's say if I'm not doing any extension here, then there is no symbol here. But instantly, once I write this py, automatically the Python symbol will be there, indicating that this is the Python script. And now this is the empty Python script tutorial.py. Now here you can write the Python code just like whatever we have done in ideally. Let's say a equal to 5, then b equals to 10, and then c equals to a. Now that's the advantage of using this ID. Okay, so once you click this a, automatically you get some suggestions you can take from that, and plus b. And if there is some error in any of the line, it will be highlighted automatically. For example, if this is there and you hit enter, okay, sorry, uh, then it will show something is wrong on this line. Immediately you'll get this kind of marks, and there is one error. The number of errors, the count will be displayed over here. That means one error is there in this particular thing. So immediately you can fix that thing. Okay, so that's the advantage of using this ID. And you can print the C here. Okay, so now in order to run this, there is a run button at the right corner. Okay, so here, just here, you can find there is a run button. You can click on this button. Once you click on this button, automatically this code will run. So once I click on this one, it will run and its output is 15. Okay, we'll get the outcome as 15. 1 5 as is 10 plus 5. And you can notice the file is created in this folder. So tutorial.py is now created on the desktop folder aiml.internship. And again, if you want, you can also open this file in ideally. So if you right click and edit with ideally, it will open here also. Okay, the same code, and you can run from there also. But as soon as you will do this, this thing will be updated in that folder, and you can actually start executing your Python codes from right from this folder or from this ID. Now this is very interesting ID. Now it will show you first of all the number of lines and this line number, so that whenever there is error, it will immediately say that error is on this particular line, so you can immediately find out that thing and you can fix that error. Or even during typing, if there is some error, it automatically highlights, and the number of errors, the count of that error will be displayed over here. And very easily you can run your Python code, and the output will be available in the same window here. But that was not the case with ideally. You have to run the code from the editor window, and the output was available in shell window. So that was quite confusing and was not the good thing. Was not actually user friendly, but this is quite user friendly as far as this ID is concerned. So I'll recommend this one. So I'll suggest you should download and install these things. Okay. Now, before we go into the details of the syntax of this Python, what is the syntax of this Python? Now, if you have programmed in C language, अगर आपने C लैंग्वेज में प्रोग्रामिंग की होंगी, तो आपको क्या डिफरेंसेस नज़र आते हैं पाइथन कोड में? अगर मैंने एडिशन का प्रोग्राम किया है, जिन्होंने अभी तक कोई भी प्रोग्रामिंग की नहीं है, डोंट वरी, नॉट टू वरी अबाउट दिस सी लैंग्वेज एंड दिस वन, बट जिन लोगों ने पाइथन में प्रोग्रामिंग इसके पहले सी लैंग्वेज में प्रोग्रामिंग की है, कैन यू suggest me any differences between C language and Python? ये कोड देख के, अगर ये सेम कोड if I have to write in C, अगर मैं सेम थिंग C लैंग्वेज में लिखना चाहता हूँ, and if I have to write the same thing in Python, what are the differences? Okay, the number one difference, we use semicolon at the end of each statement. Okay, Ria has answered this one, so correct. In C language, in C language, every statement will end up with semicolon, just like in Marathi, Hindi, and English. Every statement ends with full stop. In C language, every statement will end up with semicolon. Okay, that's the one difference, and that's not the case with Python. We need not to write any kind of semicolon. Every new line will be a new line in Python, new statement in Python. Okay. Secondly, in C language you're asking where keyword. So that's the second difference is in C language, if you define these variables, you will have to write int a, int b, int c previously. Okay, you if you are using this integer kind of variables, in case of C, you will have to write int a comma b comma c. After that, you will be able to use this, but that's not the case with Python. So again, we are saving some lines. Header files. Okay, the header files is again important thing in C language. Even if you are doing printing stuff, you will have to use header files hash include stdio.h. So basically, even the print, very basic function, printing on the console, that's the very basic function of any programming language, कि किसी भी प्रोग्राम का आउटपुट प्रिंट करना है, दैट इज वेरी बेसिक फंक्शन. उसके लिए भी सी लैंग्वेज में आपको लाइब्रेरी इंक्लूड करना पड़ेगा, उसके लिए हेडर फाइल इंक्लूड करना पड़ेगा, और उसके लिए आपको लिखना पड़ेगा हैश इंक्लूड stdio.h, सो दैट जो प्रिंट एप स्कैन एप आप यूज करोगे वो उस लाइब्रेरी के अंदर होगा. तो दैट इज द केस इन केस ऑफ सी लैंग्वेज. लेकिन इफ आई कंपेयर दिस थिंग विद पाइथन, यू सी कि मुझे यहाँ पे कोई भी लाइब्रेरी इंक्लूड करने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ी, जैसे कि stdio.h और एनी अदर लाइब्रेरी. आई नीड नॉट टू इंक्लूड एनी लाइब्रेरी. प्रिंट फंक्शन इज द डिफॉल्ट फंक्शन और इट इज preloaded function. Need not to load any library for that function. So that means the Python must have many built-in functions which the C language is not having. Okay, that could be the another difference. Any other difference apart from this? Anybody can answer in the chat section. Any other difference? Correct. No main function. Again, this Sauni has answered it correctly. If you have programmed in C language, you must have seen there is a main function. There at least there has to be a main function. Without main function, we can't say that's a C language code. So C language code will not complete without main function. So in case of C language, we should use main function. But that's not the case with the Python. Again, the next difference is brackets. Curly brackets are not used in Python. So here, in case of Python, in case of C language, you will have to use the curly brackets in main function parenthesis. But that's not the case with Python. We'll not see any kind of curly brackets here. Okay, for that, in order to manage the curly brackets and the scope of the uh, statements, you will have to do something different. So that we'll discuss what you will have to do if you have to use the let's say if statement for loop, while loop, how to do that in Python without curly brackets. Now, if there is no curly brackets in Python, now you may have some question that how we can manage the for loop and while loop in that case, and even the function if you define in future. For that, there is some special thing in Python that we'll learn in upcoming sessions. That is called as indentation. So we'll learn that in future, but curly brackets are not required in Python. So that means the Python code is straightforward, easy to understand, readable. No special semicolons and any other step is required. Straightforward. It is very simple to understand, and it requires very less number of lines. If it was a C language code, then firstly I'll have to write the hash include str.h, then uh, main function, and then int a comma b comma c, and then I can accept the values for a b, and then I can calculate the c equal to a plus b. And secondly, is there any difference in print function as compared to the C? If I compare this with the C, is there any difference in print function? The first is very clear that there is printf function and here it is print function. The name is different. Any other difference in the print function apart from this name of the function? Anybody can suggest in the chat section difference in the print function. Format specifiers %d, %f, %c. If I have to print the integer values, then I need to use %d in case of C language. But that's not the case, purely not the case in case of Python. Directly you can print the variable names. Okay, so that's how it is very easy to understand, and the syntax is very nice. Okay, and easy to learn language. Now, next important thing. Okay, now once we have installed everything, this is the important topic that we must discuss before actually we understand the Python language and the syntax of Python. And on the surface level, we have compared C language with the Python, and we have understood that Python codes are quite small in terms of length, easy to understand. Curly brackets and these semicolons are not required. Many times you may have come across the semicolon errors in C language, but that will not be the case in Python. It will be really straightforward. Now, there are two kinds of high level programming languages. Number one is compiled programming language, and other one is interpreted programming language. Now, as far as the Python is concerned, it is not compiled programming language, it is interpreted programming language. Now, what's the difference between this? Now, as far as this is concerned, this is related to how we translate your language into machine code. So in the beginning of the session, we have understood that the we should use some sort of translator so that we can communicate with the machine code. Okay, we must use some sort of translator so that we can communicate with the machine. So that and for that we have suggested that we can use some compilers or some interpreters to translate the language. But how the language is translated in the machine code, or in terms of voltage and current, or zeros or ones, or in the binary, on that the languages are classified into categories: compiled language and interpreted programming languages. Now, in case of compiled programming languages, there is, firstly you will have to compile the code. So in C language, if you have programmed in C language, which is compiled programming language, firstly you will have to click on compile button. So it will compile your code, and after compilation you can run that code. Okay, so there are two steps in order to execute C language code as it is compiled language. The flow is like this: you have source code, maybe written in C language or in Python or maybe in Java, that you will translate in one go using this compiler. So read the complete source code. Okay, is it clear now? Somebody has said my voice is not clear. Please message S if my voice is clear now. Okay, there are some mixed. Okay, fine. Now it's clear. Okay, so the compiled programming language and the interpreted programming language, that's what we are discussing. So in case of compiled programming language, entire code is read in one go. That means if you write any code in C language, that will be read in one cycle, and that will be translated to machine code, and after that it will be executed. But in case of interpreter, what happens, every single line from the source code will be read, that will be translated to machine code, and now that will be executed. Okay, firstly every single line will be read, that will be translated to machine code, and after that it will be executed, and this cycle will repeat. Oh, here it will be a loop. This is the working of interpreter. So the Python is this kind of programming language. The Python developer have developed Python language in this way. They have made this programming language as interpreter or interpreted programming language, and this is the compiled programming language. And that's how sometimes as a disadvantage of Python, many people argue that the Python is a slow programming language as it is interpreter programming language. So obviously it can be slow as we compare with the compiled version of programming language. And during now compile karna matlab kya karna, we have to translate. Now during translation, if there are some grammatical errors, okay, not logical errors, grammatical mistakes, grammar errors, that can be solved, or that can be highlighted by the compiler software. If there are some grammatical mistakes, that will be highlighted by the software in case of the compiled programming language. But in case of interpreted programming language, the grammatical mistakes will be highlighted only when during the execution of this. So every single instruction will be executed, and during execution of every single instruction, the grammatical instructions or the whatever the errors we are getting, that will be highlighted. Okay, so that's the difference between this compiled programming language and interpreted programming language. So hope it's now clear. And secondly, okay, again breaking. Okay, now it's over. The actually I was concluding the session only. But if you have any queries in today's session, you can ask in the chat box. Queries, I'm waiting for the queries. Okay, no queries. Yeah, recording I'll be providing you. I'll be providing recording for each and every session. Also, I have pre-recorded some sessions, so that will be available in YouTube channels. Some videos will be public, and some will be private. So some people have provided some different email address other than Gmail, so they may not be able to access the private videos. So those who have provided other email addresses other than Gmail, please provide Gmail email addresses so that I can share some videos which are private videos on your email address on YouTube, so that you can access from your YouTube account. Okay, the yeah, this could be a good question. Can I use 3.8.0 if I have downloaded both 3.9 and 3.8 version? Definitely, you can use both the interpreters. Only thing is that you will have to choose the which interpreter you have to use in VS Code. So there is option in VS Code. I'll tell you that while discussing some codes, how to switch the interpreters in VS Code. So even if you download tens of versions of Python 3.8, 3.9, even 3.2, 3.4, you may use any interpreter. So whatever you want, you can use. And you can keep both versions also in your computer. No worries with that. Any other queries? Yeah. Correct. Actually, as it's open source programming language, so the continuous development is happening in this. So, so every time they are improving, some new functions are added, some old functions are getting removed, or there are some syntax variations. So mostly there is no syntax variation as far as the language is concerned. So if you say Python 2 and Python 3, there is major syntax variation, but in terms of grammar there is huge variation in terms of Python 2 and Python 3. But in across the versions of Python 3, like 3.1, 3.2 and so on, there is no syntax variation. Very little or rarely you will find some syntax variation. Otherwise only some built-in functions are getting changed, some libraries are getting updated. So that's the only thing, nothing to worry about it. You can use any version. Yeah, for beginners, Python 3, because Python 2 is now officially discontinued. So any version, any Python 2 version is okay, but I'll recommend slightly higher version like Python 3.8, Python 3.9. You can go with that version. So don't use Python 3.1, 3.2, such versions. Go with Python or higher version than Python 3.5. You can go. And again, there is no syntax variation in terms of Python 3.1, 3.2. There is no syntax variation. Only thing is that some functions are extra, some are removed in higher versions, some names of functions are changed in higher version. That's the only thing. No worries with that. Okay, the Mangesh has again the good question. Can I use Atom as an alternative for VS Code? Correct. You can use any ID which is user friendly to you and on which you find yourself comfortable. You may use even ideally also. You may use PyCharm, Atom, or any ID, even Google Colab also. You should be comfortable on it. That's the only thing. Okay, so we conclude with today's session. If still some doubts are left, you can ask me in the WhatsApp group also. I'll try to answer there also. And that's the end of today's session. Tomorrow we'll continue with variables in Python. We'll understand the syntax in detail and data types in Python. So from tomorrow, we'll start or we'll deal with the actual Python programming. So see you tomorrow and thank you for attending.